Hi everyone and welcome back to IEE. In today's video, we will show you how you can create and update as well as delete a device object in Nautobot using REST API. First things first, of course, we will look at the comprehensive API document from Nautobot. So what I'll do, I will open up a new tab and then I'm going to start typing the IP address of Nautobot followed by /API/docs and then I'm going to hit enter. At this point, we should see the Swagger GUI for our endpoints. As you can see on the screen here. So what I'm going to do, search for devices, and then I'm going to hit next. And the option that we are interested in is the post option. And you can see the endpoint that we are after is the /DCIM/devices. So I'm going to click on that to expand that option further. And if you scroll down, you can see the request body example on the screen. And if you click on the schema, here you can see all the different options that we can include as part of the body request. However, what I want to highlight is that there are some options that are mandatory, such as the device type, the status, the role, and the locations. If I keep scrolling down, yeah, these are the only ones. So if I were then to expand further on each of these types, that's the outer key. What you can see on the screen here is the outer key. And it has an inner key, which is ID, as well as object underscore type, as well as the URL. If you were then to expand on that further, you can see that the ID is a data type of a string and the UUID is requested or required. I will demonstrate how you can retrieve these IDs shortly. And the same applies for status and role, as well as location. So all of them are required to have a UUID, which is a string. So if we keep scrolling down, you will find a responses section. And under that section, you can see that the code that we should be expecting is 201. That means that the post request has been triggered successfully. And the data or the response data that we should receive would contain this information, as you can see on the screen here. So without further ado, let's get on with coding. Okay, so what I just did, I opened up my IDE and I have created a new file called Nautobot_API.python. And what I'm going to start with, I'm going to say import requests. And also I'm going to say from rich import print as r_print. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to create a variable called headers for Nautobot. And inside that header, I'm going to assign it to an empty dictionary. And inside that empty dictionary, I'm going to create a key. And the key is going to be authorization. And the value is going to be token. And we would need to include the token that is generated by Nautobot. So I'm going to go back to Nautobot. And if you haven't logged in, you just need to log in. And I'm going to go to admin and I'm going to go to tokens. And in here, I can copy my token. If you haven't got a token, it's so simple to add one. If you click on the plus add button, you should be able to add a new token. Just follow the options and fill the options as you see fit. So once you are satisfied with this, you can go ahead and hit save. I'm not going to do that since I already created one. So I'm going to go back to Nautobot, and if I go back to my code and I paste the token, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to create local variables, guys, for each of the endpoint that we need to obtain so that we can make our job at a later stage much easier. So the first variable that I'm going to create is device_type, and I'm going to assign it to DCIM/device-type. And that is going to give us all the device types that we have configured in Nautobot. And then the next variable that I would like to create is the status. And again, I'm going to say extras statuses, and then followed by role variable. And there I'm going to say extras /roles. I'm also going to create a variable called location. And again, I'm going to say DCIM /locations. And then I am going to create another variable called platform. And in here is going to be DCIM /platforms. And finally, I'm going to create a variable called rack. And that is also going to be DCIM /racks. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we are going to start getting the UUID for each of these objects so that we are able to build the payload so that we can create a device or the device in question. And before we actually carry on further, I want to show you how many devices do we have at the moment. And as you can see on the screen, so if you go to Nautobot and then go to devices and then click on the devices object, you can see that at the moment currently I've only configured one device, which is called C9200-48P-switch1. So I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to go back to my code. And what I will do, I will say response equal requests dot get. And in here, we would also need to create another variable, guys. Sorry. We need to include the URL as well. So the URL is going to be https and 192.168.130/API. So going back to line number 16, I'm going to say URL plus the first element that we after is the device type. So we need to get the device types. And then in here, we're going to say headers equal header underscore Nautobot. And also we're gonna say verify. I'm gonna disable the SSL verifications. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say for each line in response.json, I am only interested in the results. And I'm gonna say r underscore print each line. And I'm gonna just say exit at this point. So if I go ahead and execute this, we have a problem. Device. It's time to troubleshoot, guys, so bear with me 1 second. Right, okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay. So at the moment, you can see that the response came back with a lot of information, let's say. And what I want to be able to see, I'm only interested in the ID as well as the display. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my code and I'm going to start typing r underscore print. I'm only interested in the ID. And I'm going to concatenate that with a comma. And also I want to display value. Then I'm going to comment that. So run that again. And in here, guys, you can see that we have two different records at the moment as we speak. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to go back here. And I'm going to say, I'm going to paste this UUID value as well as the display so that I know which one is associated with which object. So that is the first, I would say this is the first mandatory option that we must include. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to move into the status. So all I need to do is literally copy that variable and paste it there and then hit run. And you can see the different values. And what I'm interested in is the active option. So I'm going to copy that option. I'm going to come here. And I'm going to paste that there. Again, I will repeat the same thing for role. So the roles here, so my intention is to create an access switch. So I'm going to copy this UID as well as the name. And I'm going to paste it on the role. And then what I'm going to do next, I'm going to copy the location. Execute the script again. And I've got row 1 and row 2. I'm going to copy both of them. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the platform, even though the platform is not mandatory option, but I just want to kind of like get all the UUIDs that are configured currently. So I'm going to copy the platform, paste it in there, hit execution button, and you can see the platform currently is only configured with iOS. And I'm going to do the same thing for the rack. And you can see that we've got about 6 racks. Right. So that is the first step, guys, is to figure out how we can get or fetch the UUID that is associated with our device object. Okay, so what I'm going to do next, I'm going to start constructing the actual payload. So what I would do, I will say data, or actually, sorry, I will repeat that. And instead of deleting my code, guys, I'm just going to comment it. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to say data equal, and I'm going to open up a dictionary. And in there, one of the options is obviously display. We need to add that in parentheses. So I'm going to say display. And the value is going to be C 9200-48P-switch 2. And also I'm going to include the name. The name is going to be the same pretty much. So I'm going to copy that value and I'm going to paste it there. And then the first mandatory option that we must include is the device type. So I'm going to say device underscore type. And then in here, we can add the inner key, which is going to be the ID. And then we have to feed it the UUID that we talked about. So when we talk about device type, so we need to scroll all the way up, and device type, we've got 2 different device types. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this one. And then next, I'm going to use the status. I'm going to create the status. Again, open up a new dictionary inside the status. And the inner key is going to be the ID. And the value, again, is going to be the UUID. So status, so if we scroll up, we only interested in the active one. So we're going to set that to this UI ID. And then if we keep going, we need to include the role. And again, the inner key is going to be the ID, followed by the UUID. So if we go back to the role section, I'm interested in the access switch. And I'm going to paste it there. Next, I'm going to say the location. Again, the inner key is going to be ID, followed by the UUID of the location in question. So we have two locations. Let's say that I am going to, so the first device, I believe the first switch is part of rack 1, and the location is row 2. So let's say this one is going to be in sorry, this is row 1. The next one is going to be in row 2. So I'm going to use this UUID instead. And then I'm going to say, sorry. So the location and then the ID is there. And then other options that we can include, such as the serial number. And that could be just anything really. So I'm going to start it with C since it's a Cisco device. And I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the next kind of like option is the asset tag. So I'm going to say asset underscore tag. And that is going to be a number. And I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as just an example. And then once we get to that stage, I believe the data payload is sufficient enough to go ahead so that we can use it, and we can go ahead and create the device in question. So we can go ahead and say response equal requests dot post, and then we would need to include the URL as well as the devices. So I don't think we have created a device. Yeah, we haven't. Okay, so another variable that we need to create is called devices. And there we're going to say DCIM / devices. So here we're going to concatenate it with devices. We're going to provide the headers. So headers equal header underscore Nautobot. We're also going to say verify equal to false, and we also going to include the JSON payload as a JSON format. And then we're going to say rprint response. Also, we could potentially print the JSON response as well. So I'm going to say r response or r underscore print. I want to print the response .json. I'm going to say exit. So if we've configured everything correctly, we should be able to kind of like create the device object. So I'm going to go ahead and execute the script. And here we go. So we get a response of 201, which indicates that the post request API call has been triggered successfully. And you can see that the body is generated and is being displayed accordingly. So the new UUID for that particular device is this, as you can see on the screen. The object type is the DCIM.device. The display is this, and so on and so forth. So what I'll do, I'll go back to my Nautobot, and if I refresh this page, you can see that the new object or the new switch has been created, and you can see that the location is in row 2. The serial number, it matches what we exactly have put in the payload, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what I would like to do next is I'm going to update this object or this device object, and I'm going to update the platform as well as the rack. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my code, and then if I were to go back to my data variable and remove all of this, So I'm going to say, for instance, I'm going to mention the rack. I want the rack to be, the inner key is going to be ID, and I need to include the UUID as well. So if I go back, so I would like to include rack 2. So I'm going to copy this value and I'm going to paste it there. And then I'm going to follow it with the platform as well. And the inner key again is going to be ID, and the UUID of that platform, which is this one, this value. And also, one of the things that I would like to mention, guys, is if you've got multiple devices that you want to be able to get all the devices that you have here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to uncomment my previous code that I've created with you, and I'm going to set the line 46 to exit to terminate the script so that this code doesn't get executed. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to execute this, and you can see here that I've got 2 devices at the moment with these UUIDs. So I'm going to say, I'm going to put them here. And what I'm interested in is this UUID. And then I'm going to comment this section. And again, so response equal request dot post, that post is going to be removed and I'm going to replace it with patch. And we have the URL is already set, the device is already set, and what we need to set next is the UUID, which I just literally copied. Data payload is almost being updated, but what I want to modify next is the serial number. So instead of having that long-winded serial number, I'm going to say Cisco, and then I'm going to say 123. And the asset tag, I'm going to call it 80-1234. So I think we are good to go and execute this. So let's have a look. And here we go, guys. So I scroll all the way up. I can see the response here is 200, which is what we would expect. And if I then go back to Nautobot and refresh this page, you can see that the switch 2 has been updated with the iOS as well as the rack. So this is how you can update a device and update certain elements for a particular object in Nautobot. Okay, guys, so what I'm going to do next, I'm going to show you how you can actually delete this object, particularly the one that we just created. But before we do so, let's just visit our API documents. And if we were to go to the delete option or delete endpoint, /GCIM/devices. And you can see if you scroll down, you can see the request body. We only need to include the ID of the object that we're trying to delete. And the response that we should be expecting is 204. So without further ado, let's jump into the code and let's see how it goes. So we already know that the UUID that I'm after is this one. We already have the URL is being set. And what we need to do is literally copy this. And what we're going to do is we are going to remove all of that. And here we're going to put this into a list. And I'm going to say ID. And then I'm going to set the UUID. And then instead of using the patch method, I'm going to use the delete method. And since we are deleting an object, we shouldn't really expect a JSON data. So I'm going to remove this. And at that point, we should be able to, we are good to go. We should be able to go ahead and execute the script. And you can see the response here is 204. So that means I'm expecting that the current object or this device will be removed. And as you can see, refresh the screen and you can see that the object is already gone. Okay guys, we've reached the end of the video. If you have found this video helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss our future tutorials and tech insights. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop a comment below. Remember to keep learning and stay curious and inspired. And until next time, peace.